Alright, the time has come. No more sketchy crap. It's time to replace the power steering gearbox with the performance gearbox. So I'm not going to do this all in one day, but it's going to get done within a week. So, not sure why, but all of a sudden, now it's leaking. Never did that before, but now it's leaking. But I will say that this power steering gearbox worked great. Didn't have any slop in it, which was awesome. But since the frame's cracked, I might as well do some cool stuff to it. And then I'm gonna have to change the brakes. Look at that. And then these got to be the original rotors, because these are worn down. And on the other side, this thing has a major lip to it, right on the edge. No grooves, but these are worn down. Probably see that right there. Anyways, it's the power steering stuff we're working on now, so it's going to be slowly taken apart and put back together, and that frame and everything else is going to get welded up, and everything's going to be done correctly. So alright guys, let's get to it. Alright, so some of it's been taken apart. This is basically just hanging on there because it's still holding on to the pitman arm or idler arm. That's got to get removed, and then the fitting's got to get removed, put on the other box, and it's also been removed here. And actually the cracks aren't even that bad. I thought they were going to be running for like a long ways. They're not that bad at all. So it's going to be an easy fix. Then once I get the box out, I'll show you even more, but all this is pretty simple to get done and get out. Alright, hang tight. Alright, so the gearbox has been removed. The old fittings have been removed. The steering shaft has been removed. And I don't remember what I told you on the other video. I think it was a 16 and an 18 for the fitting size, but I forget it was 16 by something and 18 by something. If you're interested, you can watch the other video on the power steering 6AN conversion. So the old fittings from the other box will work on the new Borgeson for the 6AN fittings, and everything was going well except until I got to this piece of crap. They're saying this works for 87 or 80, all the way up to 87, 73 to 87. That's not true. You hear a lot of people say on videos also that do this, that you have to massage them and beat them and everything else. Take a look at the curvature on this. And I noticed this before I even ordered it, but I ordered it anyway because there were so many reviews of people saying this worked with their 82 on up truck. Now my cracks aren't that bad. I got lucky. Nothing on top, nothing on bottom, and just a little bit right here. I don't know if the light will help any. but it stops right there where you see the shiny paint. And then there's just a little bit more right above it. Very minor. Like I said, the top's okay. On this one, it's very minor. Runs all the way to that hole. That's going to be an easy fix. Nothing on the bottom. So it's going to be a really, really easy fix. But don't believe the BS reviews about this plate. Even if you put it in from the back side, this shape doesn't fit it whatsoever. And even if you put it on this side, these are protruding outwards. Technically, it would have to fit the opposite way to where this would be flat on those holes, but it's not. Secondly, when you put this plate up against the gearbox, it doesn't even conform to it. It's like a whole ½ inch off. This is made for the older style trucks like 73 to 79 or 73 to 80, and they go behind. And if you look at their frames are totally different from this frame, from, I guess I'll say 80 to 87. I'm probably off, but the frames are not the same. They'll always tell you these work for all years. They do not. I've already put this in as many times as I could to see how I could modify it to make it work, whatever I had to do to make it work, and it's just not worth the work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grind these in a V so deep that it's almost coming out the other end, so that when I weld it, it's actually penetrating the other end, so it'll be a solid weld. Like I said, it stops right here, it stops right here, and it makes like this little horseshoe with a half a horseshoe on this side, and then the top is real simple. So I'm just gonna make that a super deep groove and put my MIG welder on hot as I can, and I'm gonna blow right through it. That was not really what I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna make it right. I'll show the video of it. So anyways, don't believe the hype on that. And if you did that on your 80 to 87, then show us some pictures or show us a video of what you did, because that does not work. So let's get started. Alright, so here's the aftermath. The holes have been drilled at the end of the hairline cracks. Same one for the top one. And those holes also even have a bevel on them. That way I could just have them welded around it. And now the hairline cracks themselves need to be ground out into a V shape. And that's it. Let's keep going. Alright, so the grooves for the hairline cracks have already been grounded down. We use the I forget what you call this, but it finds hairline cracks in any metal that you have or what have you. So you have your cleaner, your penetrant, your developer. That stuff works pretty good. Let's see what it looks like on the frame itself. So this side has already been done, verified. The cracks are where they're supposed to be and the grinds are where they're supposed to be. This, same thing. That's some really good stuff. But anyways, so it's not ground around here for the fact that there needs to be a C-clamp or something to push this metal back in flush with the other metal. So that's got to be done next. And then all the outside part can be welded, and then the C-clamp can come off. This can be all grounded, and then that can be all welded. That way it's done kind of like in 2 steps. And you can see it's grounded pretty thin. That way, when it gets hit with weld, it's going to be pretty penetrated. So hopefully it doesn't ever re-crack. And of course, all the ends of the cracks have been drilled out. That's what these little holes are. That's a mounting point. That's a mounting point. That's a mounting point, and that's a mounting point. That's a hairline crack at the end, hairline crack at the end, hairline crack at the end. And that's it, folks. Alright, so let's keep going. Alrighty, folks, so this is where the party begins. As you can see down here, there's been some really deep grooves ground into the frame where the cracks were, where it's almost paper thin at the edge of the cracks. That way when it gets welded, it actually gets penetrated. Then while you're at it, might as well change the bearing out and all the little plastic pieces that go in there, because those get wore out since everything else is getting brand new. So it was just those two that had cracks in them. Time to weld them up. Alright, so here she is in her done state. It's flat from there to there. Crack all the way across was welded. Crack on top. It was just kind of smooth ground a little bit on the top, so it didn't interfere with the housing of the steering pump. Then it's all really still thick material in there, as you can see. So it was V-grooved pretty deep to where it was almost feather edged, and then welded with plenty of material. So I can pretty much guarantee that's not ever going to come back. So that being said, I'm going to prime this and paint it black with some undercoating. And then let me show you a trick that you need to do with the Borgeson gearbox. Alright, so this is what I used. Rust-Oleum undercoating, rubberized black. It's paintable and it resists rust, but I mean, I just used it. I've always used that stuff without ever putting any paint over it. And let me get a light. And that's it, folks. That's simple. Alright, let's get the box mounted. Alright, let me show you a trick on these Magnuson boxes, or Borgeson, I'm sorry, steering gear boxes. I think these are made for a lot of other applications, because it's got a bevel. From this being flat, this is ground flat on each corner, which means this black part is the part that's going to hit the frame first before this does. So what I did was I went and got some washers. I believe these are grade 8, and then these are just some standard stainless. And what I did was I went to the hardware store and I matched up one that was going to be flush, or as close to flush, with the groove, and it came out to be the grade 8 bolts were just a hair thicker. I don't know what the actual thickness of it is. It's in the thousandths, I know that. And it comes up right to the edge of that. So you got to put a washer in between for this thing to sit and mount completely flat without stressing the frame and pulling the frame that few thousandths of an inch up. You see that? See that lip? So that washer is going to fill the gap on that lip. Where is he? So it's best to use a washer. So now let's get this thing mounted. Alright, so I got the box mounted. It sits perfect. It's right where it's supposed to be. Ain't nothing special about it other than it's a Borgeson box. It fit perfect. I guess nothing warped or anything, so nothing was too far ground either, so it's sitting perfectly flat, which is a good thing, so it'll distribute the stress evenly, I guess. But I had to remove the bearing here with the little retainer clip and all that other crap and get a new one. I noticed mine was wobbling. I thought it was missing bearings, but apparently it comes like that. But this is, you can tell this is wore out. This right here is actually cracked. See that? Just like the steering box. It's cracked in 2 places. So went back to Outback Truck Parts in Spring, picked up a new retainer, new cap, new spring retainer, and a new bearing. I even greased it. I don't know if you're supposed to do that or not. This one was dry. Like I said, I don't know if you're supposed to do that or not. And now I'm going to replace that back over there before this Borgeson box goes on. I mean, Borgeson steering shaft. I put on the Borgeson steering shaft. This needs to be cut down. I don't know if I'm going to paint it or not yet. They say you should because it'll rust, but we'll see. Alright, so let me get this retainer in. Alright guys, so the steering equipment is officially done. And man, let me tell you, it is awesome. I don't care what anybody says, unless you own one, you'll know. To me, it feels like a rack and pinion drive. I BS you not. This thing is just quick on response, and it's supposed to be like 2.5 turns. This one's like 2 1/4 turns, left to right. So I didn't paint it because I really don't care. So I'm sure it's gonna rust. I got my high fitting, my low pressure fitting, all of that worked. Everything came over from the original steering box, including the NTP fittings. The box is flush up against the frame, obviously because I use the swashers to make it completely flat, and because I think this box is like universal for everything. So not everything, but a lot of stuff. And man, I can't say enough good about it. I just can't. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take you for a ride, and we're going to close this video out and be done with it. Alright, so I don't know if you can hear me with the window down, but I know I had a loose steering before due to the frame being cracked, but I mean, geez, you just turn and it turns. And feels pretty awesome. Alright, so you can see the wheels are straight. Actually, now they're straight. Let's see how many turns lock to lock. So 1, 1.5 to the left, put it back in the center, and we're gonna go 1.5 to the right. So it's not 2 1/4 turn, it's 1.5 to the right and 1.5 to the left. I don't have nothing to have a camera showing here and the wheel at the same time, but that's it. So if this is one full turn, 1.5, right back in the middle, right? 1.5. That's weird. I thought it was supposed to be 2 1/4 or 2 1/2 turns. I'll have to check into that. Alright folks, so that's it. That was really worth the wait and putting all that on. It was really worth the performance feel. I really do love it. It really does feel like a rack and pinion to me. And being that it's only 1 1/2 turns left to right, that's kind of weird. But it's turned a pretty good ways. But I'll check into it. So I definitely recommend doing this. It's really worth the money. Alright guys, y'all have fun.